What is up, moviegoers, and welcome to another edition of the ONETA Show, brought to you by PTE Creative. As always, I'm your host, Evan Davies, and along with me today is our lovely co-host, Dylan Davies, because this is another crossover event with the ONETA Movie Show, the new show over at PTE Creative, and we're continuing our cult classic series. Dylan, what movie are we covering today?
We got 1985's The Black Cauldron.
And what a fun yet frustrating film to watch.
Yeah, most of my notes are like the the movie in a larger sense, not so much like little things.
Very much so. So, I'm going to give some important context to this film to see where ultimately this. I will give a lot more thought just as you will towards the end of it. However, because this cult classic series is not our box office series, we don't have as many ending questions, but I would have to say this. Is this movie successful at its message? No. But I think part of the problem is exactly movie studio interference at its finest. For instance, The Black Cauldron,
Part of it.
partially, for sure. I'm not saying it was going to be a cinematic masterpiece without interference. However, The Black Cauldron is part of a 5-book series called The Chronicles of Prydain or Prydain. It's based off of Welsh mythology, which hits home for us both, as we are both heavily Welsh, and we both love English folk tales and fantasy and shit from that region. We both love stories like that. And Disney, in their infinite wisdom, when in the mid 80s they were completely on their ass and had no idea what was going on. Was that when they had Eisner, or was that right before Eisner?
So I did a little bit of research on it. Eisner and Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was pretty much like the head of production of the animation studio, they took over just before this. So like 1985, 1984-ish.
Okay, so this is right before Disney at least hires the right people to get them off their ass. Because Michael Eisner, in many
Yeah,
ways, saved Disney in a lot of ways,
but
business
in
wise.
many ways he was awful as well.
Exactly. Let's be honest. They have the one guy that's ever run it really well is the only one who's ever been there in history to be successful. He leaves, and they just got him back because like you need him
Yeah,
back. Um, and of course, now that I'm blanking on his name, and it's gonna drive me fucking insane, even though I can see his face right now.
Bob Iger.
Yes, thank you, Bob Iger. Bob Iger is truly the only one that's ever really run that studio properly, where you're like, holy shit, they're just rolling in money.
Well, the difference is every CEO of Disney is going to be the exact same. It comes down to profit. They
Yeah.
want as much as they can get.
Yes. But their
But
priorities
the
change a
difference,
lot.
but their difference is when they hire people who know what they're doing to actually run stuff.
Absolutely. And that's the thing
That's
is,
really the key difference.
like, Eisner was very much into the animation, and he was very much into the Disney parks. He completely revamped the Disney parks to make the Disney parks worthwhile to go to. That was like his big project, where Iger's all about like Marvel acquisition, all that shit. That's under Iger, or really was spearheaded with
Yeah,
Iger. So the reason that's important is this film is in production in right before Eisner and Katzenberg get into power at Disney. In the infinite wisdom of Disney at the time, which is so typical fucking movie studio at the time, they want to adapt a book series of 5 books, and they're going to take 2 books, smash them together, and they're going to make a movie that is the runtime on this film is 82 minutes. And it feels like all of 82
yeah,
minutes because it is so fast. And it does not allow for a
yeah.
single moment to breathe, anything like that. But I think it's because you're getting 2 fucking books just smash. I've never read the books. I'm not
Well,
claiming quality of the books, but the books at least are very popular with a lot of people for good reason. because they have good pacing by most people's standards.
Yeah. Well, that the whole thing of combining books has been. I mean, it was still popular in 2000 when they were talking about combining the first three Harry Potter books.
Yeah, and that just doesn't work.
So
And the other thing is, you can have the
it doesn't
opposite
make sense.
happen. You can have the opposite happen where you have The Hobbit, where they want a trilogy, so they're going to go do a trilogy. And The Hobbit, if you look at The Hobbit probably should have been two parts, but it could have been one. I think The Hobbit, because of the amount of history they wanted to put in with the ties to Middle Earth and Lord of the Rings, it should have been two parts. But three parts, yeah, we're pushing it a lot. Um, but already from the get go, you're seeing where the Black Cauldron is set up for failure.
Yeah.
And it is absurd when you go on Disney Plus. You can't even get a trailer. They just show a clip of the movie as the trailer. You click the trailer feature, it just shows a clip from the movie. I was trying to watch it, but I'm starting the movie at 11:30 last night after a long, long day of doing a lot of stuff. I helped a few friends move yesterday. I drove to a completely different state to go hang out with people because I'm getting ready to leave the East Coast. And also it's just been a very emotionally taxing week for me, as it was my last week working with all my kids. So I'm now done with childcare and retired. But so I'm starting this movie at 11:30, and immediately I'm like, just give me the trailer. I want to see what they're trying to sell us first. Go into and then go into the movie, seeing like, okay, how accurate is their trailer? And you can't even get a trailer. Like, that's how little Disney cares about this film, for
Yeah.
context. And this does not feel Disney in the slightest.
No, that's one of the problems.
Nice. Hopefully, we get some nice thunderstorm sounds in the background as this, because I got a severe thunderstorm warning on my phone right now. From the first moment of the intro, this sets a completely different tone. This is so 80s in so many ways. In the intro to the film, they use the words demonic and undead. In what way, shape, or form have you ever heard of a Disney film that uses the words demonic or undead? Ever.
Yeah. It that's one of the reasons I like it, but it's also one of the reasons it fails.
Exactly. Like, the way I saw this film was, it is a metal song, and it is metal to its core. It is dark, it is fast, it does not care what you think about it. It's doing its own thing, and that's what it's gonna fucking do. And there are moments, and there's imagery and moments where you're like, this is fucking rad. This is metal. And then the rest is just incoherent around it, and you're like, what is happening? But then
Yeah.
it's like listening to Master of Puppets, and it's just the riff over and over and over again. You're like, what are we doing? What are we happening? And then we get to the middle section of Master of Puppets, and you're like, holy fuck, I adore this song. This is amazing. This is fucking metal. And then it goes straight back into and you're like, oh my god, this is how this film felt for me in
Yeah.
so many ways.
And it's also a huge departure from Disney because it doesn't contain any music.
No.
No one's singing in it. Um, and no, there's not even a song just overlaid like
No.
the Fox and the Hound has a song playing. But this has nothing.
It's all its own. And I have a note about music, but this film struggles in tone. It struggles in pacing. It struggles in imagery, frankly. But yet there's something if something about the film fits your suitability. Like, I love dark shit. I love demonic stuff. I love undead things. I love zombie movies. I love dark fantasy. I love all this shit. So that's why I have a huge affection for it. Much to you. You like some of the weirder, darker stuff about it. But we get first intro, demonic, undead, evil, tyrannical king. Someone's trying to resurrect him so they can have the ultimate power to rule the world. And then immediately, right after the intro, nice little, Tweety Bird music goes into, oh, hey, there's this pig farmer here. And you're like, and it's all
Yeah.
bright colors again, and you're like, where the fuck are we?
Well, apparently there was an opening part that focused on the Horn King that was cut from the movie.
Yes.
So that was supposed to be before the intro to Terran and the pig and all that.
Yeah. So, and this is a film that if you don't haven't read book, if you haven't read a book, and I'm not saying a book in general, but if you haven't read a specific book and you just go through the Wikipedia page, this is the perfect style of book where you need extra context. Because within the
Yep.
first paragraph on Wikipedia, they're like, "Oh, there's a lovable farm boy named Taryn, and he's a pig keeper for an oracular white pig," and you're like, "What the fuck are we talking about,
Yeah.
man?" And this film starts off with undead evil king, soul trapped in cauldron. Anybody who possesses it could rule the world, and then immediately just goes, hey, there's this weird wizard that you only see for about 3 minutes. There's a young boy on his farm, and they have a white pig who is an oracle that can see the future. And you're like,
Yeah.
what the fuck is happening?
That's why everyone complains about exposition, but that's why it's important at times.
You need to have the
You
balance.
need to, yes, you need to have exposition. You need to do it cleverly, but you can't just skip over everything.
And it's just like, oh, wizard. Oh, fortune telling pig. Oh, Terran, our main character. It's not that he's unlikable. It's not Madam Web from our last show.
No,
But immediately he's just kind of like a petulant kid. And you're like,
that
okay.
I think that's the problem. He feels like he's like 12 years old.
Yeah. And the thing is,
It should be an older teenager.
it should be. And the books are a coming of age story. And a coming of age fantasy film. Or a fantasy series. However, if you're already smashing books together, we're already cutting characters. Like the Horned King isn't actually the main villain of the fucking book series.
Yes, I
He's-
figured that out. Yeah,
He's the general essentially. He's like the number one warrior, but he's not the main villain.
he's he's, he's Vader.
Exactly, he's Vader. We keep using Vader all the time because it's the easiest way to understand it. You're completely cutting a main villain. You're going with the Horn King, which I have a lot of thoughts on it, and I'm mostly positive on. But there's another character that's supposed to be on that farm. They cut entirely,
Yep.
and you get nothing. You're just, who's this old guy? Maybe he's a wizard. Maybe he's just a farmer. I don't know.
I thought he was just a farmer.
Exactly. And then I learned that he's a wizard because I read the Wikipedia article trying to figure shit out. And then I was like, okay, well that's logical, I guess, that he lives in secret. But then he just throws the kid to the wolves.
Yeah, that's what I wrote down. I was like, this is a really illogical choice of his. Let's send out a 12-year-old and a pig.
So fucking illogical, dude. So illogical. So
Oh, by the way, Dalvin, the should-be wizard,
yeah,
you know who that guy is?
no.
Toby Jones's father.
Interesting. That's a fun little nod, a little fun little tie. It's just
Yeah.
I don't understand. I have a lot of fun little bullshit notes. First of all, Pig freaks out, and the farmer wizard Dalbin just immediately knows, oh shit, it's about to have a vision. I wasn't trying to do this, but let's do it. Sees one vision. This all happens within the matter of about 4 minutes, mind you. Taryn is just swinging a stick around, pretending he's a warrior. Falls in the mud. Needs to give the pig a bath because it was in the mud with him. Pig freaks out. Dalbin comes out. Oh, bring it to me. It's gonna have a vision. Has it show its vision in a pool of water. And it's just like you just see a horn. You see the figure of the Horn King riding a horse, which, mind you, he doesn't do in the rest of the fucking movie. Never rides a horse. Never leaves the castle. Nothing like it. Oh, that's the Horn King, and you're like, okay. And
Yeah.
then he cuts. He takes a loaf of bread, cuts one piece off of it, puts an apple next to it, wraps it up, gives it to the kid, and he's like, "Go hide this pig in the edge of the forest." That's it.
Yeah,
That's the whole journey.
he doesn't have a plan either. The plan is just avoid this pig getting captured. That's the entire plan.
The entire plan is make sure the pig doesn't get captured. Go to the edge of the forbidden forest and figure it out. You'll be safe there.
Yeah.
He gives the kid a piece of bread and an apple, and he just says, "Figure it out, motherfucker."
Before we get too far, I also found out this is the first movie to have that iconic blue screen with the white Disney castle on it.
Yeah.
You know, at the beginning, I was like, that's so weird that they stuck with it after this movie bombed.
I think that shows
would
you
think
the quality of the intro versus the quality of the film sometimes. They're like, this is our new signature.
Yeah, that's true.
I could easily
Because
see
that
this.
Disney one is iconic.
It's fucking iconic. It brought joy to my heart seeing it. Because I was like, oh,
Yeah.
oh, the Disney magic of my childhood. And I love the Black Cauldron as a child. So, as did you. And we watched this fucking movie hundreds of times at our grandmother's house in the Disney clamshell VHS, and it was a thing of beauty. And now we understand it was a thing of beauty with horrible, horrible plot holes and horrible, horrible pacing. So,
Yeah.
he has all the faith in the world, this 12-year-old boy. He has no weapon. He has no means to defend himself. He has a pig on a rope with an apple and a piece of bread. That is it. And no map, no cloak, nothing. Go into the world and protect this pig by going through the forbidden forest.
You can really tell a lot of this is based off of Tolkien.
Oh,
You know?
it's
Every franchise of fantasy stuff always steals from Lord of the Rings, but this one is like heavily influenced.
it's so the thing is this is never read the books. I'm not trying to like I'm trying very hard because we haven't read the books. And apparently the books are very critically well received by the readers. That's young.
Yeah.
It's a young fantasy series. And it was a super popular series in schools for years. I'm trying very hard to not hit at the content. I'm trying to hit at the the contextual, surroundings of the film to see what we're actually dealing with here. But immediately I was just like, "Oh, we're in Token Light world." Okay, like I live my days there's not a day that goes by that I do not think about Lord of the Rings in some way, shape, or form. I adore the world of Tolkien. It's like I've read the Silmarillion, which reads like a fucking textbook because I don't read that much because I'm such a slow reader, and I've read the Silmarillion because I love and adore the works of Tolkien so much. This is such Tolkien light. That is such a great point on your part.
Yeah.
God, it's so problematic though. It's just like farm boy, go into the world.
The problem is with structure. Because normally you want your jumping off point to be right around 10 minutes in.
Yes.
Page 10
Yes.
of your script. You don't want it 90 seconds after you introduce a character.
No. And that's the thing.
So, yeah,
It's based on the length of your film. You don't get it within 10 minutes in Lord of the Rings. But you also have a 5-minute preamble in the Lord of the Rings, and it's a 3-hour movie, so it's like whatever. But
Yeah.
it needs to be paced correctly so you understand where you are, you understand why you're doing what you're doing, and then there's the call to action to say, we gotta go. Gotta go. Holy fuck. Instead, it's just, pig, save him. Run off with no food, no cloak, no means of defense. Figure it out, 12-year-old.
one of the weirder things about the movie is it both looks expensive and well made and really cheap and awful. Because there's times when you just see the matte lines around every single character.
Yeah.
Like you see that little white line around it. That's the matte. So
There,
that's what's confusing about the movie.
I literally have my third note is animation is beautiful, but you're spot on. There are moments in this where I just went, was this the first time they were working with ILM and kind of had like some computer graphics? Because it's almost, I mean, granted, we're getting the remastered version on Disney Plus, but it's almost like you're seeing like really high end, beautiful, beautiful animation, and then within the next shot, you're like, holy fuck, this looks different, man.
Yeah. So according to IMDb, which take that for what it is,
Yeah.
it said that this is kind of like a passing of the torch from the classic animators who worked with Walt
Yeah.
and then the new Renaissance period. So it's
Uh,
probably a mixture of both old people and inexperienced people.
yeah, that would make a lot of sense. This feels
Yeah.
like the project that old people are passing it off, and they're like, "We finished it. It's done. Some of it's good.
Yeah.
Some of it.
And apparently this was in like pre-production for like 10 years.
Oh yeah. I mean, again,
At
it's
Disney.
at that point that book series is finished, I believe, for over a decade. Or the first book
Okay.
was over a decade old already. It was already within schools. It was already within publication. It was already popular. Yeah, you want to get it. It's the same thing of Disney. Do you remember Oz the Great and Powerful? It was like 2013. It had like James Franco
Yes.
and like Mila Kunis or whatever. They wanted to make Oz for decades. Walt Disney was hot on the fucking trail of Oz for decades, and he just could never make it work. And they did like a 1985 movie based on Oz that no one ever speaks about because it kind of just like it came and went, and no one ever speaks of it. You have to like look hard to try to find it. But it's that was kind of Disney at that period. They find bankable things that they wanted to make, and then just could not figure out how to make them. And
Yeah. It
the
didn't help that at that time when you're making 2D animation, it was expensive.
it was
And they weren't making great money because the past movies were Fox and the Hound, Robin Hood, The Rescuers,
yeah.
which they're hits, but they're not huge.
No, I mean they're not Finding fucking Nemo. They're not The Little Mermaid. They're
No.
not. They're not those Disney movies that not only are a hit, but take over the culture and the zeitgeist of families. They're not Beauty
Yeah.
and the Beast that's out there winning a fucking Oscar or nominated for an Oscar. You know, it's just like
Yeah.
they're popular films with the niche audience that they're in, and they're hits for the time that you can. There are ways to pass a summer day with your kids. That's what they are. Yeah. As
Yeah.
someone who, like I just said, I just finished working with kids. There are so many times when you just need, you're working with kids, you just go, shit, the weather sucks. Our plans are screwed. What do we do? And you call the nearest movie theater, or you look up online the nearest movie theater, and you're like, what movies are you playing that is PG or less that I can send these kids to quickly? Click. And you just send them because you just have to fill time. And that was kind of like, it feels like what the target audience was for a lot of these Disney films. Is they would just pick movies and they just do it. And the Black Cauldron, I just feel it doesn't understand what its audience is. This was like the thing is this is I'm thinking 80s because same year Goonies comes out, Breakfast Club comes out. These even they're two
Back to the
wildly different.
Future.
Back to the Future comes out. There's so many great movies. Gremlins came out the year before. We're getting a lot of darker things. Like Dark Crystal was in this era. The Neverending Story was in this era. You're getting a
Temple of
lot.
Doom.
Temple
Yeah.
of Doom came out in '84, the year before. You're getting a lot of these movies that have a lot of dark elements to it, or even like The Breakfast Club, although it's not dark. It's a coming of age comedy. It has
Yeah.
an edge to it where it feels like it's speaking to the youth of the time. And this film is trying to be both, can I take my 6 year old to the movies and have a fun time with them, but speak to the youth of the time that are watching Spielberg and Lucas and all these, avant-garde, beautiful films that are so dark and twisted in their own ways. And you're trying to get that audience too, and you don't hit either of them super well. Like, this is the
Yeah.
kind of movie I could see the cast of Stranger Things loving. Like, those kids in that series, I could see them all going, "We fucking love the Black Cauldron," but nobody else in the town of Hawkins saying they love the Black Cauldron because it's all over the place, and you really have to be a fan of the genre to really buy in and love this movie.
Yeah. And it didn't do well.
No,
It made 21 million, which was 40th that year.
oh, that's not Disney quality at all. That's not.
No.
No, no, and
Because I'm assuming it probably cost double that just to make,
I wouldn't. I,
probably.
I wouldn't be shocked with the climbing costs of movies at the time and animation. Uh, and so that's the whole thing. Is you jump from super dark intro to super light to super dark immediately. You're just running the gambit. The next thing is it goes back to positive. What it does well is the shit that Disney did not want. It does dark really well. If you like it,
Yes.
it does it well. The Horn King is fucking metal. That's a
Yeah.
badass villain if I've ever seen one.
Yeah. My overall takeaway was this movie's at its best when it just lets it stay in that style.
Just
When they try to go too light, like typical Disney stuff, it it's just at odds with the rest of the movie.
it's just at odds because I have all my notes. They go to my first notes super dark, then it goes quick tone change, and then the animation is beautiful, and then it's picking apart the plot of the film, just like, oh, whatever. And then the next three notes I have are Horn King and its castle, metal as fuck, music dark and sinister and beautiful in its own way, imagery not kid fucking friendly. Like,
Yeah.
even all the bandits have like fanged teeth. The creatures all look dark and crazy and feral.
Yeah. They it reminds me a lot of the animated Lord of the Rings, that
Yes, the Bakken
style.
and rank. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, very much so.
And that's part of the problem, I think, is
Rankin and Bass, that
it
is.
doesn't oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It doesn't look like a typical Disney movie, which is a good thing and an awful thing for
Yes,
them.
because
Because it's a departure in style, but it's a fairly typical story, really. It's
yeah.
just a hero's journey kind of thing.
Now I'll ask you this question: do you know when Touchstone Pictures was founded? Because that was a Disney branch. I'm gonna look it up if you don't know it. But
I think it's like right around 88.
Touchstone Pictures, founded February 15th, 1984. So this movie would have been too
Oh,
late for that. But for context, here's why Touchstone's important. Early films of Touchstone, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, The Nightmare Before Christmas. These are films that fit the Disney portfolio from the fact of, oh, they're beautiful animated pieces. But they are super departures from Disney. The Black
yeah.
Cauldron would have been so much better served if it was made a couple years later by Touchstone. Because they just would have made it its own dark, unique, twisted thing. And it would have had its niche audience. It probably would have made its money back and then been a little bit of profit. And now it would have been a cult hit, much like Who Framed Roger Rabbit or The Nightmare Before Christmas. I mean, shit, Hot Topic's printing money to this day because of Nightmare Before Christmas. That's why
Yeah.
Disney made Touchstone, so they could make those riskier films that weren't Disney friendly And I think honestly, this is a huge learning curve for them with this film going. Touchstones where we're going to make these now.
Yeah. It's easy to look on hindsight like, oh, why didn't they just do this or why didn't they just do that? The problem is they were in such financial dire straits that it's like, okay, we're kind of boxed in here.
So, for context, for a lot of people, how bad was the situation at Disney at the time of this film?
So what I read is that they were struggling so much with animation that they completely gutted the animation building and they pretty much just forced all the animators into like this pretty much like a closet. And then it wasn't until like Little
Ooh.
Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin that they got like, you know, a premium studio to work out of.
I mean,
Because I don't think the crew was that big on this either.
no. And the thing about it is the Walt Disney era of Disney. It's remembered for what it did. It's not remembered for how it was at the time.
Yeah,
Walt was about spectacle. Walt was about making big experiences, which is why Disney World, it's not an amusement park. It's an experience. You don't go to Disney going, I want to have the best rides because that's not what you get at Disney. You
yeah. It's
get
not an amusement park. It's a theme park.
it's a theme park that relies heavily on themes and immersion. I've often said this. It's a topic for another podcast, but something that I think is really important to illustrate the point we're trying to make here. You and I both love Six Flags. We love those big roller coaster style parks where you're getting the best ride possible. And then we go into rides like Batman.
Quick,
Yeah,
quick question: did you see the Dark Universe stuff?
no.
Oh, you gotta look it up.
Do we have
It's
positive news here?
one of the parks that Universal announced
Ooh. Okay. Okay.
because they have five new like parks within
The
a
park.
giant I think it's called like Epic Universe or something like that.
Okay. I'm happy. I'm
And
down
one of
for that
them
shit.
just really yeah, it's just based on Universal monsters.
Finally. Fuck yes, finally.
Yeah,
So,
it looks pretty cool.
to illustrate the point, thank you for telling me that because I'm about to lose my shit as soon as this podcast is over. The point to that is this. Dylan and I grew up going to Six Flags Great America, which is about 45 minutes an hour north of Chicago. So, and at one time we were all season pass holders because I lived 15 minutes away with my now wife. So, the Batman ride that was put in at the height of Batmania, it has a small little immersion section in line where you go through the Gotham Garden,
Yeah,
and then you go past the police car that from the GCPD, and it's labeled wrong and it's a pain in the ass, but whatever. And then you go
and
through
they're
this.
playing Kiss from a Rose.
Yeah, they're playing Kiss from a Rose and they're playing all the Batman music. You get through this very dark tunnel that's very poorly ventilated. And right before you get on the ride, right across, is the Michael Keaton batsuit. It's obviously a replica. And through the summer heat of 20 plus summers, now it just is droopy. It's kind of like. But
Yeah,
for the immersion factor, there is still the Michael Keaton Batman suit. So you kind of like get put into the, oh, I'm Batman, I'm going to go save Gotham, whatever. It's the immersion factor. And then you get a really good ride out of it. It's not good immersion, but it's an attempt to. They need Disney level immersion, the Walt Disney experience of when you go to Pirates of the Caribbean, you're
yeah,
not wowed, but we went on the original Pirates of the Caribbean before it was revamped for the movies. We both
yeah,
loved it, but we weren't excited about the ride. The ride has like what, two dips in it? Maybe?
yeah,
But you're going through going, oh my god, this Caribbean pirate feel, and this is so fun and unique. Splash Mountain, same deal. You're going through that whole mountain the whole time. You're like, this is really cool. It doesn't feel like I'm waiting 2 hours to do this fucking 45-second ride. Haunted
yeah.
Mansion, another one that's really fun and immersive. That was Disney that was the golden era, so to speak, of Disney, and they didn't give a fuck about going into debt. And if they did, they didn't show it well.
No.
And
Yeah, well, I mean, at that point, Walt had proven so much that he could make something successful
yeah,
that he was pretty much willing to bet on anything.
he was betting on anything, and this is what the era that we are picking up the pieces of what happens. It's almost like you're picking up the United States after Reaganomics when it kind of flatlines and you're kind of on your ass and you're like, well, fuck. I've been put in a hole of 20 plus years. How the fuck am I going to get out of this shit? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
like, it's kind of like when it's almost like Michael Eisner and Katzenberg. They kind of were like, dude, you dug us a hole that's 50 feet deep and we're 6 feet tall. What the fuck are we supposed to do here? And they just slowly have to make it. And this movie is being built at the height of this studio, not in a good, coherent place. And you're just trying to make it
Yeah.
work. And it's an incoherent mess because we can go scene for scene, and people could, if you had never seen the movie and you were just listening to this show, people would not believe us that this is the way the movie is structured because it's that roller
Yeah.
coaster up and down incoherent.
Very disjointed. Yeah.
It's extremely disjointed. I mean, within what 25 minutes, you go from we're on a pig farm to we're prisoners in a dark castle, and he immediately escapes somehow.
That's one of my problems. Yeah, one of my problems is that he gets taken to the castle and escapes pretty much immediately. And
Immediately,
then later on, the climax is at the same castle.
same castle with the same security problem. So we're going through the movie's continuing. The pig is captured by flying dragon creature things. He sneaks into the castle, which you're like, okay, fine. You haven't lost me yet. And then by pure circumstance, he's surrounded by like a whole army of people, including the Horned King himself, who looks menacing as fuck. And then, just through pure circumstance, he picks up the pig and runs away. And
Yeah.
he puts the pig over into the moat, and theoretically, it swims to safety. But he's captured. This is all within 25 minutes of the film starting. And then he's in prison, just whining and moping, saying how he failed and reflecting poorly. And then just a stone pops up out of the floor, and the princess of the movie is just like, oh, you're here? I'd love for you to come with me.
Yeah.
And they just walk out. There's no gates. There's no breaking locks. There's nothing. They just walk out through the dungeons. Then what's the point of the fucking dungeon if you can't keep anything? Meanwhile, in this dungeon, there is the crypt of theoretically an awful king or a great warrior that you're supposed to love and respect. And there's just this magical sword, and he just picks it up.
Yep.
No problems. Little whiz bang pow happens. They get another friend on the way, and who's a minstrel. And by the way, did you know in the books he's actually a king that doesn't want to be a king? Fluter.
Yes, I did read that. Yeah.
Which is absurd. And I love that take, but
Also,
does not come through here.
can I just say the character design on him is awful. Why would you have the guy at the beginning who's a white old dude pretty much look pretty identical to the character you get later?
Yeah.
They're too similar when you're an animation. You can make them look however you want.
Very much so. And there's pieces of the animation, the character design I love. I don't think anyone can be critical of the Horned King. That is a fucking villain for all time.
Yeah.
The Horned King is a
That's probably the
badass.
darkest character. That's probably the darkest character they've had since the. I don't know what the guy's name is, but it's in Fantasia.
Oh,
You
Nostromo,
know,
I think. I think that's what his name is.
sure,
But yeah, no,
but yeah,
absolutely.
you know who I'm talking about.
No, is that the whale from Pinocchio that I just gave you? My apologies, but I know what you're talking about. The big demonic fucking thing. Um,
Yeah,
I mean, that's up there. Like Maleficent is a little dark, but Horn King's a
Yeah.
different level. Horn King's
Yeah.
like, we're there.
Especially when his goal is very dark.
Extremely dark. I'm gonna raise an army of the undead, which is all skeletal warriors, and he's legitimately saying he utters the words, "You are going to die, or I'm going to kill you, or you will be killed," multiple times in this film. That is not a word used by Disney. They're,
Yeah.
fucking George Lucas, with the biggest franchise on the planet. Notice how no one ever says, "I'm going to kill you," or "You will be killed." It's always destroyed, or tinted at, but it's not that. They're very strategic about word choice. That has always been the case in Disney. And the Horn King's just like, "You're gonna die. I will kill you." Straight to the fucking point. And then they just magically escape at the end. They just escape the castle. They're in the
Yeah.
forest. They re-meet up with Gurgi, the weirdest fucking kind of golem, kind of not golem creature ever.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely Smeagol like. Yeah.
He's very
Because
Schmiegel. He's very
he,
Schmiegel like.
he he talks like him, he moves like him, he kind of kind of looks like him a little bit.
Yeah.
And then yeah, and then he's just kind of annoying as well.
Yeah. And then they just magically come across a pool of water, sink into it, and they're in the land of fairies.
Can I just say the, the word I would use for Taryn's journey is convenience. Everything that happens
Extremely
to him
convenient.
is convenient. Like typically in a story, you want to throw roadblocks at your characters, and then those roadblocks are real danger to them, and they
Yes.
need to solve their way out of it. This one, it's just kind of like, oh, this happened, which led to this good thing happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's all that. Yeah.
He's taken prisoner. He walks out of the cell. He finds a beautiful magic sword that does the fighting for
Yeah.
him. All he has to do is hold on to it, and it just takes care of
And
the
it
problems
breaks
for him.
and it breaks other weapons.
And it breaks other weapons. It's absurdly powerful. And then they just walk
Yeah.
out. And he's got a new minstrel bard friend. He's got a love interest. He's got the weapon of his dreams. He's gonna be finally be able to do some stuff. He saved his pig. So the whole goal is to protect the pig, right? He's already done that. Theoretically.
I wrote that down. I was like, one of the biggest problems is yeah, the MacGuffin changes.
So many times.
Typically, typically you want just, technically I guess it is the cauldron, but like they focus so much on that pig at the beginning that you're like, okay, we need to save the pig.
It's even
But then eventually it's just like,
it's even
eh,
inconsistent with what is the danger? Because we need to protect the pig. And the whole thing is the Horn King. He's after the Black Cauldron. He's after the Black Cauldron. The Horn King, the Horn King, the Horn King. Horn King gets the pig finally, is shown the vision while right before Taryn is made to be a prisoner. And then he says, oh, the Black Cauldron, it's real, it does exist. And you're like, hold up, motherfucker. You did all of this trying to prove that it was real, not even find it?
yeah. It'd be like if Sauron was like, oh, the One Ring is real?
Very much so. Wait, hold up, motherfuckers. It's like just Voldemort going like, Harry Potter's real, right? No, I need to kill
Yeah.
him. He's real, right?
Yeah.
He's real.
Uh,
What are we doing?
oh, God.
So they magically get out. They get to a forest. They re-meet Gurgi, who's only interested in trying to get food. He is shown to be sad when he loses a friend, even though they're not very friendly at first.
At the end, Gurgi actually isn't that annoying either. He's
No.
actually kind of likable. He's
Yes.
likable for like the last quarter of the movie. Man, maybe a little less than that.
Exactly. But he is doing these little stepping stones in water. Then it just turns into a whirlpool. Taryn tries to save him. He gets sucked in the whirlpool. Eilonwy tries to save Taryn. She falls in and she pulls Fluter in as well. So the whole party's just stuck in this whirlpool. And where does it go? To an underground cavern that's not wet at all. And it's inhabited by fairies. And it's the most Disney fucking thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. Because typically when you see everyone falling into the whirlpool, you're like, oh no, what's gonna happen? But then immediately it's just like, there's no threat. Whatever.
Uh huh. You're like, okay. These fairies come and they don't want to help because they're bad. Like people are bad, but then they immediately help anyways, and they're just kind. So like,
They're kind of
what is it?
they're more like Smurfs almost.
Very Smurf like, very Smurf
Yeah.
like. So they just send them, and they're like, "Oh, the Black Cauldron. We know exactly where that is. Why don't you just go there?"
Yeah, I didn't understand that at all.
Oh, you're looking for the Black Cauldron? Theoretically, the most dangerous weapon in the history of the universe. In this universe, that could give the ultimate power to reign and dominate and control everything. Oh yeah, that's over there. Why don't you go try to find it? We'll take you straight to it.
Yeah. Again, convenient.
So convenient. And it's just so clear that the pacing of this film is completely off. They don't know structurally what they really want to do. And they're just like, well, how do we get to the next thing? How do we get to the next thing? It's we want Gurgi because
Yeah.
he's a fun Disney friend. Okay. We want fairies because it's fun Disney. Okay, well, we can incorporate the fairies too. All right. Uh, we need to get to the witches somehow. So Morva, what?
That's part of the
Go
yeah.
to Morva. What is
That's the
Morva?
problem with combining books is you have wildly different stories and you somehow need to connect them, which they did not succeed at.
No. So we go to Morva. Immediately, they go into this cottage that's like built into a tree essentially, and they're trying to find the Black Cauldron, which theoretically, I guess, is in a cottage. By the words of this fucking fairy
Yeah.
folk, and then they're attacked by three witches who are mad that all their frogs have escaped. I'm not making this up.
Well, they turn people into frogs.
And then they're trying to turn people into frogs. There is the classic Disney-esque, buxom, buxom, heavy-set woman who's
I was gonna
so hot to trot it's absurd, man. Like,
yeah,
I love that
I was
character.
gonna say I miss the old Disney where they just throw in one horny woman randomly
Just
for
randomly.
no reason really.
And so there's three witches. They're theoretically sisters because they all have the same skin tone. They all have the same hairstyle. They just have different looks about them. And honestly, it could honestly be a little inspiration to Hocus Pocus if you actually look at it. But
Yeah,
they do
yeah.
have similar personality types to the Sanderson sisters of Hocus Pocus. But this heavyset witch, they don't even give them names. I think one is
They
Orva.
do have names. They do have names, but I don't know them.
I think one is Orva because I was like, hold on, is Morva a person or is Morva a place? Because this one of the sisters is
I'll look it up.
Orva, so theoretically, are they all Orva, Morva, Sorva, whatever the fuck names that we're going to try to give them? So the one sister has the one, as you put it, the one horny lady of Disney that they always throw in, the heavier set sister. She does not give a fuck about power in the slightest. She is all about, oh,
No.
I want my mans. That's all I want. I want to get my mans.
Yeah.
And then she's fighting with her sister because her sister keeps turning him into a frog, Fluter, the minstrel, and she keeps reversing the spell. And mind you, again, another way that this film is not family friendly or kid friendly in the slightest. The witch that we're talking about has a huge chest that with a very plunging neckline. Like to put it just to
It's
put it
very
bluntly,
clear.
the tits are huge. Like it's absurd.
Yeah. It's very it's very clear that Disney had not yet mastered the art of throwing in more adult things into child stories. Like they just full blown went with it.
Full blown went with it. So
By the way, it, it's Ordu, Orwin, and Orgoth.
those all sound like token demons.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true, actually.
Very, very token orc names or token fallen elf names that are under the surface of Morgoth.
Yeah.
But the sister in question just has a huge chest. Fluter is turned into a frog. At one time, he's in the air jumping away, and he's turned into a frog midair. He falls into her cleavage. The first time the frog pops out of the cleavage, because she's struggling for like 10 seconds to try to find him, saying he's disappeared. As a frog, he pops up and has a huge, absurd, cartoon, horny smile on his face because he's stuck in this woman's cleavage. It's fucking ridiculous. And
I
then
don't mind that.
it's funny and it works, but it doesn't work in this film. It works from the standpoint of this is a zany, dark, fun fantasy film. It would be hilarious if you saw this in live action done well. And he keeps popping in and out of her breasts in the cleavage, and you're like, this is a kid's movie? This doesn't work.
Yeah, compare that tone to the end when the Horn King finally kind of succeeds for a while. Like, compare those tones.
It's absurd. So after that, they're trying to, they say, the witches say, we have the Black Cauldron. We'll make you a deal for it. And they're trying to screw them out of something, which makes no sense. They figure out that the sword Terran has is super magical. So they're like, well, the head sister's like, we want that sword. And they're not going to be able to use the cauldron anyways. So let's make the deal, and then we'll just take the cauldron back later. That's essentially the whole thing. Very strategically, you just happen to find the item we need, and we will give it to you for the item you're actually seeking. And it's built in this way as if it's this great sacrifice. The kid's had the sword for 5 minutes. He has not had this sword this long.
Yeah, it's useful, that's for sure.
Super useful. It's a self-fighting sword that can glow and cut shit in half. It's absurd. But he's barely owned it. And he's like, my most prized possession. I give it to you for the Black Cauldron. And originally, they take the deal. They all laugh. They disappear. Huge magic tornado happens. Our whole party of friends almost gets taken out by fucking cauldrons that are spinning around in a tornado. It's absurd. And then just out of nowhere, the Black Cauldron appears out of the earth. And they're like,
yeah,
it's the Black Cauldron. Okay. And then you're told, okay, if you ever want to use the Black Cauldron and then stop, you can't destroy it. So the whole reason you came to find this Black Cauldron, useless. Pointless.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, that's not the first time that's ever happened in a story where someone is misled on what they could do. But then, immediately after saying it was useless and pointless, you'll never be able to destroy it, they tell them, oh, if someone just willingly gets into the cauldron and gives up their life, it'll stop it forever.
Yeah, not set up at all.
What? And then like in a pity party, the whole party, which is being led by a grumpy ass old fucking fairy, they're all sitting around the fire right next to the cauldron. They've found no shelter. They've found no food. They've found no weaponry. They're just out in the middle of this decrepit old forest with clearings everywhere and no life forms, no trees of any semblance except like dark Halloween trees with no leaves on them. And they're just sitting there, just all having a pity party. And then they try to set up a moment with Elanwi the princess and Terran the fucking warrior. Like, oh, I believe in you. He's done nothing to earn this belief whatsoever.
Again, it would work so much better if they were a little bit older.
Yeah. And
it's weird to like think of them at 12 years old. That's just weird.
Yeah, the only reason it's believable is because of how fast she's like, well, I believe in you. And you're like, yeah, a 12-year-old would believe in another 12-year-old for no fucking reason. Trust me, I've worked with them for 20 years. So, like,
Mhm.
this is where we're at. And then they just get ambushed, and immediately they all get taken prisoner again, except Gurgi. He just runs away and escapes, like
Yep.
always. But bandits show up out of nowhere with no signs. No, like, we need to run away. We're being pursued. Just, oh my god, the dragons are coming. That's awful. They turn around, the bandits. And we're not talking one or two bandits. We're talking an entire army of bandits is right behind them, and they didn't
Yeah.
notice at all. So how good are these heroes? They're useless.
Yeah.
Useless.
Yeah.
And they're taken right back to the same castle with the cauldron. Meanwhile, the pig that was all important, the fairies just said, oh, we found him. We found her. We'll take her home.
Yeah.
So the pig is irrelevant
Exactly.
now.
Yeah, that's part of the problem. Yeah. The thing that we're set up to care about at the beginning is forgotten about halfway through.
Forgotten about halfway through, and then we're going to the Black Cauldron. The namesake of the fucking movie. And
Yeah.
immediately, the Horn Kings start, like, they're put in chains. They're prisoners. Okay, fine. And then the Horn King immediately just goes, okay, Black Cauldron, I know exactly what to do. Here's my magic. The magic looks great. The music looks great. The imagery looks great. It's dark as fuck. And then out of the cauldron just come all these undead spirits that start inhabiting dead bodies. They're scary as fuck. They're not kid-friendly whatsoever. It's absurd how ridiculous it is. And they just start marching out, and he's like, kill everything.
Yeah.
This is my evil plan. Like,
Yeah. It's there's another problem there is that like they set this up, but then you never actually see the cauldron born. You never actually see them do anything, so you
No.
don't really fear them all that much. Like
they look
Harry
scary.
Potter, Death Eaters. It's set up. Orcs in Lord of the Rings, it's set up.
Yeah.
But then you never
Stormtroopers
actually
even.
see them do anything.
Stormtroopers even in
Yeah.
Star Wars, they're set up. They kill a bunch of people at the start of the movie, and then you find out they can't shoot,
Yeah.
but nonetheless, they're set up. But here we are.
Yeah.
The Cauldronborn are the undead army of spirits that then start inhabiting all these dead bodies that the Horn King just had in his castle. He's theoretically just like... We do see a scene earlier where undead bodies are just being taken in. You know, dead bodies are just being taken into the castle because they're like, we're going to collect all these dead warriors, and eventually when we achieve this plan, we're going to have an army. So at least that's explained. Of all the details, that's explained.
Yeah.
And then, here we are, and Gurgi just walks into the castle, unties all of them,
Yep.
in the same chamber that the Black Cauldron is in, which is being unguarded. It is not defended at all, whatsoever. And Taran just climbs up, and he's like, I'm going to solve all of this. I'm sorry. I have to do it. And he's going to sacrifice himself. Then Gurgi stops him. Gurgi, after showing that he's a true friend, says, I don't have any friends. And just jumps in and kills himself. And that's how the cauldron is active for 3 minutes. And the Horn King achieved his goals, told the Cauldronborn to kill everybody, and then just went to the window like he was fucking Saruman and watched. He didn't do anything else. There's no defense, nothing. And then the cauldron just stops. But it's a huge vortex tornado that's sucking everything back in that's evil. And the Horn King comes over to Taran as if Taran actually did anything useful. He's like, you did this. I'm going to kill you for it.
Yeah.
And Taran's just like holding on for dear life to the stonework. And then the Horn King is just sucked in and killed.
Oh, yeah. That made no sense. I did not remember that at all. I was like, that's how he dies?
Yeah. It's absurd.
it's so lackluster.
It's just like, what? And again, this is a Disney movie for children, theoretically, right? He is sucked away, and his cloak is taken off him and shredded and torn. His flesh is taken away, and just his skeleton is there. And then eventually his skeleton
Yeah.
is ripped away into the cauldron. It's fucking metal. I love the imagery of it. But in what way is that kid friendly?
Yeah. Well, there you go. Wild tones.
Wild tone, brother. Oh, I will say this: the green mist of the Cauldron Born looks very good. That shit looks
Yeah.
fire.
Yeah. I really the ending I think all looks really cool.
Yes, it's beautiful imagery. And then the because of the cauldron, the castle's just collapsing. We have a bullshit escape scene. And then once everyone's safe, the witches just appear in a dark cloud again. They're like, all right, we're gonna take the cauldron back. And the sister who's the the curvy sister that is after the minstrel is like, I'll do it. I'll just offer them the sword in return. We'll just one for one trade right
Yeah.
back. And they're like, no, can't make that trade. And they've lost Gurgi, so Taryn's like, I want Gurgi back. You don't know their powers. You don't know what these witches can do. Can they bring people or living things back from the dead? You don't know. And the only
Yeah.
reason they do it is because they're like, because Fluter the Minstrel, he's the one actually pushing for a trade, not Taryn, the hero that we're supposed to actually root for and care about. He says, well, maybe you
Yeah.
have no power anyways. And they get mad and they just bring the character back to life just to prove that they have power. And they just take the Black Cauldron away like nothing happened.
Yeah. See, that's the thing is that's where it's clear they did not care about how we get to the next plot point. It's just the witches just appear randomly in a cloud. It is so stupid.
That is it. There's no reason, there's no logic, nothing.
Yeah.
And then the movie
And
magically
they
turns
really
bright
did.
again, and Gurgi comes back to
Yeah.
life.
They did not set up Gurgi enough where we actually care about him.
No. And I literally have sacrifice in parentheses. Like,
Yeah.
do you care about Taryn in this film?
No.
He's a horrible protagonist. He's not good
He's
at
not
anything.
they never show him being capable.
He doesn't succeed ever. Ever.
Yeah.
The only time he ever succeeds is by circumstance, by everyone else failing around him, when he escapes with Henwin the first time. But he's taken, so he still ultimately fails, but he gets the pig out of there. And then,
Yeah.
the second time, he's holding the magical sword that does all the work for him. All he is doing is holding it as it's clearly pulling him from place to place. He never succeeds.
Yeah.
Ever. I know it's not your cup of tea, but I bring it up in almost every podcast for a reason because basic storytelling works in every medium you use it. It doesn't matter if it's in a movie, if it's in a comic book, if it's in a book, if it's in a fucking pro wrestling ring. It's the same reason why. Do you want to know why people care about pro sports teams as much as they do? Because they give them a reason to. The reason Detroit now all of a sudden gives a shit about the Lions is because they gave them a reason to believe. For 30 plus
Yeah.
years, they had no reason to believe. So why would they believe? They wouldn't care. There's no reason to care. But they finally got a good bunch of players with a good coach. They're making a run, and now the people of Detroit believe. If a hero gives you no reason to believe in them, why would you believe in them?
Yeah. I mean, none of the characters really ever show they're capable.
No!
Like, honestly, I don't think they ever show anyone doing anything like spectacular.
No, they don't. They do not at all. You have a minstrel who
Yeah.
cannot play. You have a princess that has a
Yeah.
bauble that She's just kind. She's just there. Let's be honest. She's
Yeah.
just
No,
there.
he has no character at all.
Zero character whatsoever. Taryn fails at everything. Gurgi's the only one that's ever successful, and he's successful at stealing an apple. That is it.
Yeah, yeah. And they could have done something with Taryn where it's almost like he's succeeding in spite of himself.
Yes.
They could have had some fun doing that, but they just don't do anything with it.
Nothing. And that's where the beauty of this film is lost through the storytelling aspects of it. It's exactly what you
Yeah,
said. The dark elements of this film, if they were just allowed to run wild with the darkness, this movie could work. Because there's enough good here.
yeah,
We like the thing is this, what's so sad about this film is for the past hour, outside of the Horn King himself, just as the character design and the demeanor and the presentation. Outside of him just failing out of fucking nowhere.
Oh, also, John Hurt is great as the Horn King.
That's John Hurt?
Yeah,
Fuck yeah. Nice. I was like,
yeah.
I recognize
I
that
like his
voice, but
performance.
it's a little too off for me to immediately say it's John Hurt. So I want to be more positive about this film.
Yeah, because I
But
still enjoy it,
I still
which is
enjoy it.
weird.
Yes.
But the flaws are kind of overwhelming and very obvious.
I think this I'm truly I don't mean for every show to then turn into a workshop session for us. This is a textbook tailor-made example as if we were going to do a show and we were going to say the topic of this show is movies that should be rebooted. Not because studios want to make money off them again, but because they were done dirty the first time, but there's something there to make them good the
Yeah,
second time.
yeah. It's
Be-
what studios should be doing, remaking bad things into good things, not making good things into mediocre things.
Very much so. I mean, I look at what HBO did with the first two seasons of Westworld. That's a really good that's a really good idea made at a time where they couldn't make Westworld look what they wanted it to be in the 1970s. And they said, "Why
Yeah,
don't we take this and make an HBO series with a real budget and make it look what it's supposed to look like?" And the first two seasons of Westworld were incredibly popular because they were very good. They were presented the right way and the storytelling aspects were there and they did the idea justice.
yeah.
We've seen it for millennia. A young boy becoming a hero after being a dreamer works. A
It's
young
the
prince,
most basic hero's journey.
it is the most basic hero's journey and it works every time because it's just something that speaks to the human element.
Yeah,
Endearing princess works every time. Wise old sage happens in almost every story. Good friend to come along works in pretty much every story. Even the weird animal friend works in almost every story. Dark villain that you assume is the villain right off the bat works really well and succeeds a lot. Fantasy setting that is interesting and different works a lot.
yeah.
And yet, in this film, in this 82 minutes, what are you supposed to gain from any of it?
Yeah, that's where it's clear the problems are in the storytelling and not the actual making of the movie.
And that's where and
Because
the it's it's a shame.
the, you look at parts of it, you look at parts of it, and it really succeeds. But then you look at the parts that don't fit in, and they do not fit in at all.
No, brutal, brutal. The fact that you have such a successful villain from the jump, you immediately know
Yeah,
that guy's evil. He means business, and he will fuck you up. You don't have to
Yeah.
build him any more than that. You've already achieved it.
I would like a little more build up, but I understand why they didn't.
Well, the thing is this: I remember Mark Hamill telling a story of George Lucas on the first Star Wars, and Mark Hamill, he said in this, he read the script, and he said, I really wanted to be there on the first day of shooting of Darth Vader, so I could really understand that character more and really understand what it was about. And Mark Hamill, being the classic storyteller that he is himself, said, why don't you ever have any dialogue? Oh my God, that's Lord Vader, the Dark Lord of the Sith. He's just like, and George Lucas, in his infinite wisdom early on in his career, said, he's a dark masked figure in a really dark play, and he's a very dark, mysterious figure, all in black, in an all white setting. They'll get it. And you do, immediately.
And you have the music of John Williams to back it up.
And you have the music of John Williams to back it up. He's like, and we'll play some dark, scary music, and they'll get it. The Horn King is the same economical storytelling. Even in a dark, decrepit castle, he looks like a ruling sumbitch who will fuck you up.
Yes.
And where does he go?
Yeah.
Nowhere.
Yeah, that's why I wish there was just two more scenes really I would want in there. Is one setting up Terran's character more than him looking out a window.
Yep.
And being like, oh, I wish I was a warrior. Just like, dude, you're a bitch. and then I wish there was one more scene of the Horn King and his army showing, they're fearsome. They're like going to take over if they succeed.
They are a clear and present threat to the world. Let them go into a nearby village and just fuck shit up. Even better,
It worked. Yeah.
they are shown to be problematic for 1 second. It's when they appear and the bandits that are theoretically on the same team run for their fucking lives. They're like, oh shit, this is real now.
Yeah.
Have them just slaughter them. Disney way, obviously. But just slaughter them and go, we have no allegiance. We have no alliance with anybody. We are here to kill everything. The only thing we respect is the Horn King because he's the one that brought us back. And you go, this is a fucking problem. We need to solve the problem. And that's it. That's all you need to save a little bit more of that. And it's a crying shame because you just go, what are you doing? Because the elements are there.
Yeah.
The fun is there. But it's incoherent drivel that you're just back and forth. Really fun and light, really dark and terrible. Really fun and light, really dark and terrible. There's no real journey that you go on with Terran. There's no journey you see of Elanwi struggling or why she's there or why she matters. Nothing.
There's also no Disney light comedy really at all.
Outside of the fairies,
it's just kind of bland for most of it until it gets really dark.
Yeah, the best comedic scene is the scene that we talked about with the curvier sister with a frog on her chest.
Yeah.
That works.
Yes.
It works because the dark humor works, or the kind of dark, playful, sexual humor works with the really dark tone. There's a reason the horror comedy genre is as popular as it is, because you can do wild, crazy, dark things and wild, crazy, sexual things that are funny, or wild, crazy, dark comedy that's funny in that context, and they all blend really well. It's chocolate and peanut butter. It shit works, man. That's the best. That is truly the best scene to understand a character in this movie. Would you argue that outside of maybe the Horn King entrance?
Okay.
Is that truly?
No. I thought you were saying is that the best scene, but to understand characters, yes, that's the best scene.
You understand that woman immediately. Immediately, you understand that woman. I honestly think, I'm not kidding, that might be the best scene in this movie outside of just the Horn King being a badass.
Well, I would say the ending is the best. Visually. I don't know, actually, because yes, visually the end scene, but probably the most fun scene is probably the witches.
Yeah. And that's what I'm like, you understand their motivations, you understand why they're doing what they're doing. You understand everything about them extremely quickly. It's
Yeah.
and it's economical storytelling done well. And then you have all the main characters and we don't know shit. Like,
Yeah.
why is Fluter with them? Why does he matter? Why does he care? They just said, "Oh, let's save him." That was it.
Yeah.
That was it.
And then Gurgi really isn't a friend
Yep.
until the very end.
Till the very end.
And then the princess and Terran's relationship really doesn't work all that well when it's two 12-year-olds.
Yeah. And so
So
you're
yeah,
stuck with all this beautiful imagery. When shit's just happening, there's no dialogue, and stuff's just like whirling around. It looks great. It looks beautiful.
yeah,
But when people are opening their mouths and speaking, it's atrocious. it's
yeah.
it's atrociously bad because it doesn't serve the story at all.
Yeah, they boil down the each fantasy element into its most basic form, which is not always a good thing.
No, not in this case because it's too. This feels a great analogy for me. Like this is paint by numbers. Paint by numbers fantasy.
Yeah,
Go against bad guy,
yes,
beat bad guy because you're a good-hearted person. That's it.
yeah.
I mean, I wish we had more to say about
So
this
to end,
movie, but do you have any more things to really
yeah, so do I.
say? Like,
Well, no, to end it, I think we should answer two questions. Do you think it's a worthwhile watch for people who have never seen it? And then do you think it's a worthy rewatch for people who maybe saw it when they were young?
that is incredibly complex.
Yeah.
I hate to give you the caveat again, just like with Star Wars. I think you need to be part of the niche audience that loves shit like this to watch it. This is not some like
Yeah.
the kids that I worked with and was really personal about and had a very personal connection with for years. I showed it to them. I knew they'd like it because I knew they liked fantasy, they liked that kind of stuff. We watched it together and they really enjoyed it. But they're 6, 7 years old and they're whatever. This is not something that I have friends that love fantasy. That if I told them you should go watch the Black Cauldron, and they've never seen it before, and they did it, they'd be mad that I told them to go watch this movie.
Yeah.
So I would say you have to be part
Yeah.
of. So in a general audience sense, no, it's not worth an initial watch. From a very niche audience
Yeah.
sense, it's worth it.
If, yeah. If you were a kid who was into like Nightmare Before Christmas, Coraline, stuff like that,
Yeah,
that has a little darker tone already, then you're probably going to get something out of it.
you're gonna get something
But
out of it.
if you're just a general Disney fan, you're gonna fucking hate it.
You're gonna hate it. You can't you can't give this to our grandmother and say, "But grandma, it's Disney." This shit ain't gonna work.
Yeah. No. Yeah, that would. Okay, so what about?
Rewatch.
Yeah,
I think you need to have the caveat of this because there are bad movies that are extremely bad that I will watch for one specific reason. I think this could fit into this category. For instance, when I'm trying to write a really deep threatening character or I want to be in that headspace to draw a really deep threatening character, I put on One Winged Angels, the theme song for Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII, because immediately from the first second the note hits of the song, you immediately go, "Shit just got real. He is a threat. He's a badass. We're fucked." So I will play that anytime I need to get in this headspace. Even this, I'm a huge Batman fan. I've said it time and time again. I will go back and rewatch Batman and Robin, even though that movie sucks and I hate it. Because visually,
Yeah.
you can go see the architecture in it and the set decoration and all that kind of stuff. If that fits the story you're trying to tell, it's a really good way to learn if you're just paying attention to that. But if you pay attention to any word that's ever said in that movie, or if you pay attention to any of the acting, you will be wildly disappointed because it's horrible. And
Yeah. I
sadly, it's
would.
my wife's favorite Batman movie, and it's like getting a knife to the heart every time.
I'd almost say if you remember it fondly from your childhood, don't rewatch it.
Yeah, it's kind of it hurt my feelings a little bit last night. And yes, I was tired. I helped people move and was doing all this shit yesterday. It almost hurt my feelings 30 minutes in that I was like, why don't I care? I remember
There's
loving
just
this as
not
a child.
there's not enough excitement for a rewatch.
Yeah, so to try to make myself not give caveats, I would say no to both. I don't think it's worth an initial watch for a general audience, and I don't think it's worth a rewatch for someone who's watched it before. If you want to go into caveats, then I think it's worth a watch or rewatch if
Yeah.
you're part of the niche audience that really likes it or would like something
Yeah.
like this. Is it worthy
I
of
would completely agree.
is it worthy of another attempt? Absolutely. Could you imagine the new modern Disney
Well,
movies that's like 2
Disney
hours plus live action? Black Cauldron would be fucking
Disney
rad.
Disney rebought the rights to it in 2016.
Ooh, I did not know that.
So
Okay.
they still own it, and I would assume that they want to do something with it if they rebought it.
I mean, that could be protecting their ass on their existing property, the Black Cauldron, if they wasn't protected properly back then. But
I don't think they care about this movie.
I, oh, of course not. I don't. They couldn't even be bothered to put the trailer on Disney Plus. The trailer's 90
Yeah, yeah,
seconds.
yeah. And it
This
would
is
probably take like an intern. It'd take an intern half an hour to throw together a trailer.
absolutely, dude. I think the trailer's on YouTube. You could literally just go because I think I've watched it recently a couple months ago because I just caught it as I was doing some movie deep dive history stuff on
Yeah,
YouTube. It's crazy to me how little they care. When I was on Disney Plus last night, I had to get like 2 or 3 letters into Cauldron before the thumbnail even
yeah,
appeared. And like
yeah.
when you just
I
type in black, it's not necessarily fair because you get Black Panther, Black Widow, the big Marvel stuff. Blackish comes up
yeah,
if you have the Hulu extension. So those are big properties. But Black Space doesn't even get you to Black Cauldron. Black Sea
yeah,
can get you to Black Cauldron. You have to really even start typing that out, and you're like, wow, they buried this fucking movie on here,
yeah,
dude.
yeah. It's kind of a shame, but at the same time, I understand it.
it's the it's the it's the story that was your baby, but you know it's not great, and you love it and you protect it because it's your baby, but it's not it's not the first thing I'm going to show. Like I love our early time. You and I did movie reviews back in 2014 of all time, like in 2015. It was absurd that that early we were doing stuff. Those were my baby from the sense that like I loved doing it with you. I have fond memories of doing it. It was the only time you ever actually came to my in-laws' house at that house that they lived in. And I have a lot of fond memories of doing it, but I never want to listen to those shows again because I know we were vastly different people that
Oh,
weren't nearly as good at this as
yeah,
we are now. And we're still learning and we're still growing and getting better. We're still figuring out what to do. I can't even imagine what a decade ago we would have been like. So I was like, I love it. It's my baby. But
yeah,
if someone says you should put that back up and not have it as a private video that only you can see, I'll be like, you're out of your fucking mind. No, I don't want you to see that.
yeah.
And I
Definitely not.
and
I
I
don't want to listen to that.
and exactly. And I feel like that's the shame of this film is there's good in it. There's things to really like. the Horn King truly is a grand success of a villain to immediately get you to understand a villain and immediately go, wow, this is a problem. But outside of that, nothing else in this movie is successful. It's paced horribly. It's way too fast. There's not a moment to breathe at all. Shit's happening
Yeah.
left and right. We don't even get a montage of a journey. A fucking 3-minute Disney
No.
montage in this would at least help you understand we're on a journey. We're going through, like, that would help the movie so much if you just had a montage scene.
That's where you that's where you understand that how much music does in Disney movies.
Yes.
It is so important.
Well, I just had this thought. Lion King, Simba growing up. That takes place in 90 seconds. Him
Yeah.
walking in the night sky, walking across a log with Timon and Pumbaa. And you understand years have passed in 90 seconds.
Yep. Well, I picked the last three, so it's your turn to pick a movie for
All right, so
the
I'm going to
next
go to
cult
something that
classic.
I am. So we've already planned this out a little bit. We've discussed this. So we're going to continue the cult classic series 2 weeks from now on the ONETA Movie Show and the ONETA Show in a crossover, as we are going to be doing as part of the cult classic series Lisa Frankenstein, which is a 2024 movie that I utterly adore, and I am happy to rewatch at any moment of any day. I adore that movie, and
And
I'm
I have
not sure,
not seen it.
and I'm not sure Dylan's gonna like it at all.
Yeah. I've seen the trailer, but that's it. So we'll see.
However, we are gonna go back after watching, the success that was the Phantom Menace episode, which was a really fun first episode for the ONETA Movie Show, doing that crossover with the ONETA Show. We're gonna continue the big box office series, and we're going to be watching The Exorcist for the next episode of the first standalone ONETA Movie Show by itself with no crossover whatsoever. So we're going back to 1973 in The Exorcist, and that is going to be quite the show. So those are our next two shows. We're going to get, so the next two shows for the ONETA Movie Show is going to be The Exorcist as part of the big box office series, as we watch the number one hits of every single year, box office wise. And then we're going to continue the cult classic series after that with Lisa Frankenstein in 2020. And that's going to be a lot of fun for both of those movies, because they're both going to probably have wildly different opinions from the two of us.
Probably, yeah.
So, but that is going to be a lot of fun. And we've got a lot of fun stuff planned for you guys. Do we have any last parting words on the Black Cauldron or the show in general?
Nah, I think we said it.
Horn King, metal as fuck. This movie is metal as fuck, but it's also incoherent drivel. And it hurts my soul because it's metal as fuck. So, with that being said, that is going to do it here, folks, over at the ONETA Show and the ONETA Movie Show. If you liked what you saw today, like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell for more on YouTube. If you caught us over on Spotify, leave us a review there. Go check out some merch over at ptecreative.etsy.com. Support us there as well. Check out our socials. But more importantly, go watch a movie and enjoy your day. I have been your host, Evan Davies. That has been my co-host, Dylan Davies, today. Love, hugs, peace to you all. Go watch a fun movie. Bye!